I only recently began watching this show and it's truly great. It's a new take on the superhero genre whilst also being so entertaining and interesting at the same time. So imagine my surprise upon finding out that season 3 is out with a 3-episode premiere, and it truly made me feel a lot does happen in these 3 episodes and a lot is set up, so let's talk about everything. But before that, this is your spoiler warning. Come back after you have watched it.
Oh man, that's your favorite finger.
We start off seeing Mark undergo training with Cecil to get stronger so that when more Viltrumites come to Earth later, he can face them. But I don't think training is gonna stop what Anissa does. Oliver is now a lot older and he is developing his powers, and Debbie and Mark get him to swear not to use it when they're not around. Meanwhile, these time-traveling thieves try to steal the Declaration of Independence, but are caught by Mark and Rex Splode. But Multipool, voiced by Simu Liu, pulls up and starts attacking Rex, thinking that he's the reason behind Duplicate's death. But she then reveals to everyone that she's alive and engaged. But amongst the chaos, the thieves escape. Mark then goes to tell Eve how he feels, but like a complete idiot blurts out what future Eve said in the finale of season 2, and our present Eve is super pissed. Then Doc Seismic kidnaps and captures all the Supes besides Mark and Eve, and they arrive to the scene to free everyone, but they themselves get captured. So Cecil has no choice but to use Darkwing and Reanimen to fight Doc Seismic, and Mark is pretty annoyed by this, and the episode ends with Mark confronting Cecil, who has prepared some countermeasures. This episode was the perfect introduction because it doesn't dwell too long on the finale of last season, whilst also moving on to the next story pretty quickly, but in season 2 it did take a while for Mark to fully accept what his father did. But then again, Mark is kind of carrying the guilt of killing Levy throughout the 3 episodes that we've seen so far. So there is that. We finally do get a bit of Eve and Mark's relationship, but it doesn't hold too long. But we'll see that it comes into fruition next episode. So it's not much of a gripe here, and the animation looks great, and they did say that there won't be a break this season, so I am looking forward to what they cook up later on. And this episode does nicely set us up for the next episode. So this episode gets a 7 out of 10.
I'm not the one who's gonna get hurt.
In this episode, we see the tipping point of Mark and Cecil's relationship, whilst also learning about Cecil's past. We see that Cecil was fighting villains called Knucklebuster and Force Fist, and they unleash a mystery chemical that causes his skin to rip off. And all that's left is a tiny bit of skin on his cheek, but everything else is synthetic, made from fake skin. However, once he recovers, the GDA HQ gets attacked by the Lizard League, but Cecil's boss, Director Radcliffe, uses Knucklebuster and Force Fist to help fight the League. But Cecil doesn't like this, and then kills them. He's then sent to prison, and 3 years later he gets promoted to the Director of the GDA, and meets Omni-Man. In the present, we see that Mark has a similar view to what Cecil had all those years ago, but Cecil has since changed and believes that criminals can be given a second chance to fix their mistakes, and Mark starts tweaking and attacks all the Reanimen, and Cecil has no choice but to use an ultrasonic sound device to hurt Mark. The Guardians see this, and this causes a split in the Guardians, with Robot Monster Girl Rex, Shrinking Ray and Bulletproof leaving, whilst the rest remain. Mark also threatens Cecil, saying that if he ever goes near him or his family again, he will turn into the Hulk and beat the crap out of him. And the episode ends with Mark and Eve finally getting together. One thing I will say is that this episode is by far the best written episode of the show so far, because it presents such an interesting and important debate into the superhero genre that we never really consider. Should criminals really be given a second chance to correct their mistakes and to lead a better life, or should they be incarcerated for their crimes? I can personally see the argument for both sides, like there is no guarantee that the bad guys won't switch and attack people again, despite their minds being programmed, and the psychological effect this must have on the victims and the families is something they can't fix by amending their ways. And we even see this issue in the show itself. But on the other hand, everyone deserves a second chance, and it's sort of like the Civil War debate of this show. I am curious as to what you guys think of this debate, so do let me know down below. But this line is by far the most impactful line in the show so far.
We can be the good guys, or we can be the guys that save the world.
Because it shows the decisions these heroes have to make on a day-to-day basis while saving the world. Like in Age of Ultron, the Avengers could be the heroes and risk saving the whole of Sokovia with the big chance that they could destroy all life on Earth, or they destroy an entire country but save the world, and that's what they choose. And I want more superhero projects to explore this idea, because usually the bad guys just end up in jail or die. So it is nice to think of this idea. But seeing the Guardians back Mark was just so nice, and these guys have definitely changed my opinion on them. At the start of the show I did kind of think they're all douches, but now I'm starting to like them. And I also think that Robot's secret project may lead to something huge later down the line. But this episode was by far the best, and so it gets a 9 out of 10.
Kid Omni-Man is here!
This episode shows us Oliver's darker Omni-Man side, with his approach to crime fighting. In every episode so far, Oliver has really wanted to join Mark and be a hero, but Mark and Debbie aren't too sure of letting him become one purely because he's a kid. But nevertheless, he begins training with Mark, and this leads to many close calls with villains. Mark and Oliver get new suits, with Oliver being Kid Omni-Man, and Mark getting his traumatic blue and black suit that will only cause him pain from here on out. They end up fighting the Mauler twins, and the twins launch a nuke that Mark has to stop, but Oliver then accidentally brutally rips open the two twins, and it pretty much shocks the Guardians. Mark is then angry and starts berating Oliver, forgetting that he's half alien, so he doesn't feel the same connection that Mark does to humanity. And Oliver begins living up to his name and starts talking like Omni-Man. Debbie meanwhile begins dating this guy and straight up just blurts out her son's secret identity, and Mark is now super angry. Eve is there to calm him down though, and Mark and Debbie talk to Oliver about his ways of thinking, but then they find out they're being spied on, but they don't know who it is, but we do, and it's Angstrom Levy, who is there to set up an amazing arc coming next. This episode isn't as good as the last one, but it is good regardless. Oliver's lack of connection to humanity is clear through his thought process, and we see the true battle of nature versus nurture coming into full effect here. And honestly, it is curious as to which will win. I personally do think that Oliver still might kill criminals if he's ever superheroing on his own, but I don't think he's gonna go completely Omni-Man insane. Mark's blue and black costume does look good, despite the amount of suffering that comes next. And the guy Debbie is dating is definitely not a good guy, or at least something will happen to him later down the line. And this episode gets a 7.5 out of 10. Do comment below your thoughts and subscribe whilst you're there.